Today, we're diving into a fascinating and frankly, pretty wild theory. It's one that connects a huge new pipeline in the Middle East to the future of cryptocurrency and even to the water that comes out of your tap. The core idea? We might be watching a plan unfold to put a literal price tag on the planet itself.
So, a pipeline, crypto, and tap water. Sounds like a totally random list of things, right? Well, the theory we're breaking down today says they are all connected, all critical pieces of one single, incredibly ambitious global strategy. And it all kicks off with a massive construction project proposed for the Middle East.
All right, so our story begins with a really strategic offer. Egypt basically goes to Saudi Arabia with a huge idea, a massive infrastructure project that's designed to get around a growing threat in one of the most important waterways on the entire planet.
And here's the plan, and it is a big one. The idea is to build this vast network of pipelines that would snake across the land, carrying oil and gas from the Gulf directly to the Red Sea. What this does is create a land-based shortcut, a way to completely bypass the Strait of Hormuz, which, as you know, is one of the world's most critical and most vulnerable choke points for energy.
Okay, but why now? Why this sudden push for such an enormous and costly project? Well, according to this theory, the answer isn't just about security or avoiding conflict. It's about a plan to completely tear up a rule that's been around for centuries, the very idea of freedom of the seas.
And this brings us to the next really crucial piece of the puzzle, that whole concept of freedom of the seas, which has been the bedrock of global trade forever, is allegedly being taken apart. And it all starts by changing the very definition of what an international waterway is. You know, for hundreds of years, the rule has been pretty simple. These natural straits, like Hormuz or Gibraltar, belong to everyone. They're international waters, and any ship from any nation can pass through freely without having to pay some kind of toll. That principle is what keeps global commerce flowing. But that might be about to change big time.
The theory claims a whole new model is being put in place. A group, let's call it the Hormuz Alliance, made up of Western and Gulf countries, would effectively take control of the strait, and their first order of business? To get rid of free passage and start charging mandatory transit fees for every single ship that goes through.
And the numbers here are just mind-boggling. The projected income is 80 billion euros a year just from the Strait of Hormuz. Now, to give you some perspective, that's about 10 times what the Suez Canal makes in a year. We're not talking about a small toll. This is a massive new source of revenue and, more importantly, economic power.
But here's the kicker. It's not just about the money. According to the theory, this is a strategic weapon. By adding these costs, the alliance could directly drive up the price of manufacturing for their economic rivals in Asia, like China, Japan, and South Korea. It also creates a blueprint that could be used elsewhere, with talk of Ethiopia being set up to control the Bab el-Mandeb Strait in the exact same way.
And if you think this is just a plan for the high seas, think again. The theory argues this new for-profit model isn't going to stop at the coastline. It's poised to move inland, to take aim at a resource that's even more fundamental to life than oil. Right. The argument is that the exact same logic is now being pointed at our rivers. The goal is to fundamentally change how we think about water. We'd go from paying a small fee for the service of having it cleaned and piped to our homes, to paying for the actual value of the water itself. It turns a natural right into a commodity with a price tag.
So, what's behind this push? I mean, sure, growing populations and agriculture are part of it, but the source material we're looking at points to a much newer and much thirstier culprit, the very engine of our digital world. Yep, the internet. All those massive power-guzzling data centers that hold our emails, our photos, our streaming services, and now all this new AI, they get incredibly hot. And their number one need isn't more electricity, it's colossal amounts of fresh water, just to keep them from overheating. As our digital world gets bigger, that demand is just exploding. You know, this didn't just happen overnight. The argument is that this has been a slow, decades-long process of changing our perception. It started back in the 90s, when we all got used to the idea of paying for bottled water. Then in 2020, water started being traded on Wall Street like gold or oil. The supposed final step? Applying that model to the whole world, where a country like Egypt might have to pay Ethiopia for the water flowing down the Nile River.
Okay, so let's just recap. We have new tolls on the ocean and the new price tag on fresh water. But the theory adds one more critical layer to this whole thing, and it's the glue that holds it all together. A very specific, very new way to pay for it all.
Now, this is where it takes a really interesting twist. The theory alleges that Iran is the one pioneering the demand for these transit fees to be paid in cryptocurrency. Now, on the surface, that makes sense for them. It's a way to get around international sanctions. But the argument is that this is no accident, that it's actually a key part of a much bigger Western financial strategy.
And this supposedly leads to the endgame, a global debt reset. Think about it. Western nations, especially the US, are facing mountains of debt. If the countries holding that debt suddenly demanded to be paid back in actual physical dollars, it could trigger a massive crisis. So what's the proposed solution? You make cryptocurrency essential for global trade. You have to use it to pay for things like these new maritime fees. That forces everyone to adopt it, which gives it real value and legitimacy, and then you can start paying off those trillions in old-school debt with this new form of digital money.
And you can see here it's not just a US problem. A lot of major Western economies are in the same boat, swimming in debt. So if this theory holds water, a global shift to a digital system to settle all these liabilities wouldn't just be a neat trick, it would be a very convenient solution for a lot of powerful countries.
Okay, so let's bring all this back down to earth. This incredibly complex web of maritime control, water pricing, and digital finance, what does it actually mean for the global economy and, more importantly, for you and me? Well, the impacts could be very direct and very far-reaching.
The first and most immediate thing you'd feel is something called fee stacking. Just imagine an oil tanker. It leaves the Gulf and has to pay a new fee at Hormuz. Then it gets to the Red Sea and has to pay another one at el-Mandeb. Those costs don't just vanish. They get added or stacked onto the price of the oil, which gets passed all the way down the line.
And make no mistake, this isn't some abstract number on a spreadsheet. This translates directly into higher prices for almost everything. It means more pain at the gas pump. It means the trucks that deliver goods to your local store cost more to operate, so everything on the shelves costs more. It's basically a recipe for global inflation. It would also hit the Gulf nations hard, making their oil more expensive and maybe less competitive on the world market.
So, when you step back and look at the whole picture being painted by this theory, it's pretty stark. The ultimate implication is a world where things we used to consider global commons, the oceans, the rivers, even the financial system itself, are being turned into levers of economic power and geopolitical control.
And that really brings us to the final big question. Whether you see this theory as a chilling prediction or just a cautionary tale, it forces us all to think. In a world where everything from a shipping lane to a glass of water could have a price tag, what's left that's truly priceless? It's definitely something worth thinking about.